Hello and welcome everybody to yet another new episode of Beyond the Bid. Today we are fortunately graced with both Simon and Nick from Suppliant, and you've got the old school retrobates coming in from 90 Friend, Simone, Sam, and myself, Alex, the host for today. We're going to be taking, again, a little different approach. We're just going to start talking and we're going to see where it leads. I'll take notes where possible, and by the end of it, we'll hopefully conclude with some salient, fun, and interesting experiences that we've all had in the last few weeks. I'll pass the proverbial microphone over to Mr. Binner so we can start talking about the bells of A.
Absolutely. So we've been working or implementing the restructure of the campaigns for probably about 6, maybe 8 weeks now or so. And we're starting to see some signs of life, but they've had a really tough March, and this follows a really tough February, and January wasn't great too. So you can kind of see how the numbers go there. We're just having a lot of challenges, I suppose, at the moment in terms of getting consistency and traction in the Google Ads revenue and the overall revenue for the website. I think there's several factors at play here, but Simone, of course, is helping us with the accounts on this. And yeah, it's just been quite a tough one. I think you'll probably agree, Simone, that it's been a challenge for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree. February was far more difficult than March, I would
Simone, you're
say.
definitely going to have to, sorry I'm interrupting, you're going to definitely have to talk louder there.
Better?
Yeah, when it's super close, yeah.
Right. Well, not
Keep the
ideal,
mic and
but
you'll be
better.
fine.
To hang it off your glasses, something like that.
So yeah, definitely it was a tough February, and a difficult March. As Simon said, there is difficulty in achieving consistency in sales. There is difficulty in finding a product that can consistently sell, and then we can continuously push it on through Google Ads. That's the tough part. Then the shift from February, the additional difficulty on top of it is that between February and March, there is a shift in product. Like in February, stoves and fires are far more popular. And then at the beginning of March, we have seen the shift. We have seen a greater focus on barbecues. And now towards the end of March, barbecues are dominating the market. So two challenges at the same time, stock levels and seasonalities hitting 2 months where we have had some difficult times and peaks and valleys as well, because last week was really good for trading and this week so far instead is much slower. So this is what is making it difficult, and possibly even the reporting is difficult as well, because one week is good and the other week is not that good. So it is a challenge as well with the client from this point of view.
Yes, it's definitely keeping us on our toes. What we're finding, even with last week's results, is that the way that PMAX campaigns operate and the account structure operates, of course, is that it's data driven. We need to have conversions come in to really allow the campaign to optimize. But it's almost like getting your toes blown off every time, because the products start to sell and move, and we report a really good week, and then suddenly there's no stock. Even for last week, I think we had a look, and a good, healthy amount of revenue came from 4 or 5 products last week. So the top 10 performers basically for last week, 4 of them this week, they don't have. And this is a kind of recurring theme to say, as soon as we start to see some traction and ROAS goes up, cost of sale comes down because certain products are really starting to excel, they sell through them. I'm not sure if there's enough visibility in the business in terms of buying right now to say they know when they're going to run out of stock so they can replenish in time before that happens. So for these items that went out of stock last week, they're probably still being searched for right now. But of course, the ads aren't visible because they don't have stock. But we might not have stock for another, say, 2, 3 months or something like that. So
Oh boy.
it's definitely keeping us on our toes in terms of what's our approach and how we optimize this, because it works generally very well when we have products that are consistently either in stock locally at a warehouse or is drop shipped from a manufacturer. So we can just keep showing those same products and, of course, grow the revenue that way whilst we identify newcomers into the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that this is really the main difficulty right now. Even on the barbecues, again, barbecues right now are dominating the market. Easter is getting closer. If we look at last year data, when we get closer to Easter, more and more people buy barbecues, of course, because of the good weather. because they have time to spend outside. So it's really the time to sell barbecues. And this is one of the issue which it wouldn't be too much of an issue if it was like the only problem alone, because it feels like that we have some pricing problems as well, which are making the whole scaling even more challenging. Like in some cases we are more expensive than the supplier, and in many cases that we highlighted it to the client, we are more expensive than the average. In cases where we are cheaper or we are priced competitively, we have a very high sales velocity. Like the Uni pizza oven, for example, is one of the best selling products. From zero to hero in a week, and then went out of stock. Like I don't remember how many, like 15, 20 sales in a week, and then out of stock. And now now we are in a position where it's a difficult situation because we don't have apparently as many competitive products that we can push. So how do we
Feels like a
approach
market
this?
stall scenario, basically, where you put on a great spread, you sell through it, and then you go, oh shit, I need to go in the back room and rustle up some other things to put on the market stall and see what sells. And it just kind of becomes very challenging to actually be able to forecast the position, basically,
Yeah.
for where we stand in the month against our targets.
Yeah,
I guess
and
coming in from someone who doesn't really know that much about the account. I mean, I know obviously you guys like we talk about it in our catch ups, but is there a reason why the client decided to not fully stock these products, or was it like they bought the products, they wanted to see how they did, therefore held less stock? Oh, it did well, but now it's difficult to source.
That's a good question. I think, and it's just an assumption, space is definitely at a premium. So they've got 2 local warehouses, which fills the stock needs for the entire business. So I think the e-commerce side has a proportion of that. But then potentially at the same time, it's all done, I think, based on historical success. So they'll generally order their stock a season in advance. So say with the Uni Pizza ovens that sold out last week, that initial purchase order probably got put in maybe in August or September of last year, so they can get it over and
Oh
then
wow.
get them in stock. So I think there is something at play here where they probably raise their purchase orders for a quantity based on what they historically sold, and then you hedge your bets basically as a business at
Right.
that point to take on that risk of paying up front for the goods without selling them. And
yeah, I
yeah,
would say that like the difficulty here from that point of view, and from a business owner point of view, is that these products are worth like £1,000 or even higher in some cases, right? So I think there is a limit of stock that you can buy even because of the high price, really. So it's a difficult situation for this reason as well.
There's a lot going on here, isn't there?
A lot to unpack.
Yes.
It is. We need to talk about the silver bullet, but there isn't really a silver bullet. There's a munition of bullets going off in all directions. This can go back. This can be a problem 12 months in the making. So from the point of somebody making a decision on what to stock, looking at the trend analysis, looking at what stock holding we're going to have, there's a buying decision, and they're critical moments. But they're critical moments which need to be aligned with the business's ability to finance the deal. And there's a lot of people out there now that will actually offer finance on e-commerce on the basis of the type of business that you've got. But then you're in the risk of over trading, which is you bought all the stock, but then you're going to be struggling to be able to actually get through it. So you're going to be over leveraged with a cash deficit, and you've got to be able to facilitate it, which you can do, I suppose. If you then have the stock, you could lower your prices to make sure you've got the cash income to be able to cover that off. So there's all these kind of things at play. But if the decision makers if the buyers aren't engaged in the actual process of selling as well, they're not going to really care about the problems that exist around competitiveness and sell-through rates and things like that. So all of these things need to add up, don't they, to ultimately allow us to sell. And, when we talk about pricing, it's something that crops up all the time. But what's actually stopping us selling at the right price? Well, a lot of the time it's an agreement. It's a trade agreement to say that, just a gentleman's agreement, that we won't undercut the retail price. But then sometimes you get some rogue sellers that do, which then immediately puts you on your back foot. And then we come into this thing, which is talking about if you've got an AOV that is, let's say, plus 500 quid, or if it's a considered purchase, then you're going to be in a situation where that's not going to kick back in for possibly 2 or 3 weeks while the market resets itself. So there's just a lot going on here.
Yeah, it's a wider problem. It's like the perfect science, isn't it, of buying versus product
Yeah.
price positioning versus the marketing versus it's about getting the mix. And that's if you get it right, or it's kind of right. If you get it completely wrong at the back end and buy in, then you've got a real problem on your hands, either which way.
Selling at a loss or worse.
And well, I would say that well, this is a problem. Like, it's a problem for us advertisers, right? And it's a problem for the business because it's not selling as much as they want. But there's a challenge here in the middle, that is, how do we communicate all of this, and how do we approach this? Like, what is the first step? Because I think that we talked about price competitiveness, we talked about inventory size, etc. But without without taking like a proper direction, let's find a solution for these first, and then we move on to this other, right? So there is a problem in communicating all of this and then approaching it in the right way, in the right manner, I think.
I think highlighting potential pitfalls around trends as well. So if you know something is coming up to a busy period and they might have had oversight on the stock level, it might be worth telling them that. Not in this case, I'm just in general use case, because we do have tools where we can see online as to sort of intent in terms of impressions, etc., albeit pinch of salt, but it would be some steer, I suppose.
I just wonder, from a PPC agency's point of view, is how much responsibility do we have to actually advise and orchestrate this as a thing, which is whether we can actually trade or anticipate trade in the market based on historical data, and also what we're looking at in terms of data like Google Trends. Basically do some analysis which allows us to support the forecasting, because I think a lot of entrepreneurial businesses particularly is they don't necessarily have that within the business available to them. And I think it's, when we talk about a successful paid campaign, it's so much more than just the technical delivery of the last mile, right? It comes up in all the conversations time and time again.
Yeah, I think the book doesn't stop at the agency to give the answer, like the all-seeing eye on what's happening in the competitive space. But I think you've got some level of responsibility to try and at least support the business in that and steer it online, for sure. Yeah.
You know, when we were originally talking about it, the first thing that came to mind from one of my business courses at university was just-in-time production. Like, how do you shorten the time where you can have the product from wherever you're buying it to the actual warehouse, so then you can sell it? But that's obviously a much more difficult problem to solve. I think Nick's approach is a bit better. Let's look at what worked last year and plan and prep for the stuff this year and see how we land. Asking a company to maybe change their entire supply chain is a larger ask than looking at the history.
Yeah, definitely.
Nick, I was just saying how you schooled me. Thank you, sir.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying how you schooled me with your idea. I was going back to just-in-time production and thinking like changing the supply chain. Now it's much easier to look back at the data and I guess find similar winners and give it a trial if the company is not willing to implement just-in-time production.
We go back, and where we're looking at it from when we were automotive ourselves, an e-commerce business ourselves, and when you're actually an operator, you realise the constraints that you've got as a business, not just to be able to pay for the paid ads, but also to be able to hold the stock and to pay the wages and to pay the ops and to pay the shed. And there's all these factors that are in play for you to be able to run the business. And things that get cut are, we're going to basically use less. Sorry, just had an incoming call. We're going to go short on what we're going to choose to buy. And you obviously, the ideal scenario is that you can do the just in time, which is where you can buy and sell on demand, and you've got manufacturers who will support that. But the problem with the industry that we're talking about at the beginning is the fact that there's an expectation, because it's a kind of a legacy based business and industry, which is where they'll expect you to place large stock orders, and sometimes those stock orders could be 6 months in the making. You know, this becomes a highly complicated cat and mouse of what you buy and what you sell, and when you've sold through that. And I suppose part of it is maintaining your price, right? So rather than feeling like you're going to panic and you're going to sell through at a lower price, actually is to hold your position and seeing if you can sell through the quantities that you've got. Let's say 30 pieces, but if your 30 pieces are 1,200 quid each, can you maintain and hold that? And sometimes drive it through with special promotions, for example. But this is all this should all be part of the conversation, shouldn't it?
We did have some incredible success. It was a couple of years ago now on the uni pizza ovens for these guys. During the summer, we basically did exactly that. So we held price point whilst all of the other competitors just discounts and basically shaved margins. They all sold out of their stock, and then we basically did 50 grand a month for 2 months back to back, selling these pizza ovens at full retail. So when it works well, it really blows the doors off. And when you're not in that sphere, it can be quite painful, to be fair.
Especially when we're in automotive, because what you'd have is a specific fitment, for motorbikes, Sam, as you're a motorbike man. But you could have something that is a KX 250, for example, 94 model, and it will have a very specific fit. And people will phone around. They'll find 5 or 6 different distributors, and then they're saying, "Have you got it?" And there's no stock. But the point is, if you invest in the stock and you've got 3 pieces, you can say it's retail and it's going to be 11 quid delivery. And so you're maximising every opportunity to make your margin.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with things like pizza ovens, there's not really that unique fitment challenge, so that it's easier to stop. But there's still quite a wide and broad mix of types, right, and different product numbers and SKUs. And this is interesting, where you can have something like a barbecue will get a review, that whole thing blows up, and you've actually got 2 or 3 SKUs of barbecues which are very, very similar to the item that everybody's looking for. And then how can you cross sell those items, which are a 5 burner, into a 6 burner when you have got the stock rather than not having the stock? What part does PPC play in that? Because ultimately it's, there's a piece, isn't there? I mean, with the shopping, it's like they're very specific product that people are looking for. How can it's that point of when they go onto the page and land, and, can we convert? That was a huge part of it. You have people coming on and you'd be looking to convert maybe 30 or 40% of all custom. Ultimately, it drops down into the numbers that you get on the bottom line at the end of the month, right?
Very true.
So the piece here is, stock is a huge factor in terms of our ability to do that. But there's a growing number of ways that we can manage that. I mean, it could be, do you invest as an e-commerce operator, choose to invest in a smaller number of SKUs but a higher quantity, or do you choose to invest in a broader number of SKUs which covers off the whole base, which means there may be outages where you can basically command that you've got that stock position? That's a big play.
It's $1 million question.
It's definitely a
Audience.
multifaceted challenge, because even in this particular circumstance as well, they're all branded products. They're luxury items, and they don't ship overseas. And the UK is quite skint on the whole right now in terms of people's spare cash. In the papers and news articles, you're seeing that utilities are going up again, council tax is going up, food is going up. Will I spend £300 on that Uni pizza oven when Aldi are probably going to make one for $49.99 and it's going to be in the middle aisle next week? It's that kind of thing. So there's definitely an economic challenge, shall we say, there as well at play.
100%.
I said, this crazy conversation, isn't it? I mean, what would we do? Where are we getting hit hardest on this account? Is it the fact that there is the demand? First thing, is there demand? Is there demand in the marketplace with the terms that we're bidding on? And if there is it the fact that stock the thing that's killing us, or is it just a factor?
It's a factor. Pricing's a big factor, and the AOV is a big factor. Because what you've got is that the demand is there, we're getting the clicks, and the spend is there on the account. But when you're looking at products that are, say with the fires and stoves, products that are, say, £1,000 or more, you're naturally going to have a lower conversion rate anyway, because the basket value is what it is. Then you have the stock issue, where some will just catch, fly, and then you run out. And then the other side of it is the pricing factor, where because everyone's in a similar boat, you'll have half a dozen retailers that have all committed to stock purchases for a season. So our client isn't unique in that position. They've got their competitors, they've got a warehouse full of, these things as well. So then it becomes a pricing issue, and we have to be really tuned in to, is there an undercutting price, or is a competitor offering an incentive with a barbecue? Do you get a free cover and some tongs and other kind of small value adds that will make someone buy from them instead of our client? So at the moment, Simone and I are really kind of focused on this kind of almost triangular piece, where it's stock, price, season, in a loop, and promotion. I find it quite interesting. It's the offers as well, because I find it quite interesting that these guys sell Weber barbecues, which is obviously a very well-known barbecue brand. From the 1st of April this year, Weber are going to push out a cashback promotion. They ran it last year, but the reason why the manufacturer is supporting offers such as this is because last year they had a poor outlook basically on the season because of the weather in the UK, and I think this year they're probably seeing the same because of economic climate and maybe the weather. And I just find it very interesting that you have a manufacturer offering these kinds of monetary incentives, because in my mind that does paint a picture to say, well, even they aren't that confident this year that they're going to be able to sell what they've manufactured and produced at full RRP without any kind of other incentive around it.
Yeah, and like the domino effect to basically everybody else who buys from them.
Yeah.
Just on that point, I remember with automotive is that what we used to chase is margin breaks. So if we could reach 2K, for example, you get a margin break of an extra 5%. So what you do is you trade to the point of where you weren't making much money. You'd be in the single digit margins, gross margins, and then you get the extra 5% break, and then you'd be able to basically outbid everybody else for that particular brand. But you're talking about pretty audacious strategies.
Basically, so just so
It
I get the
is.
context right, I don't know if Simone and Sam know about this, but like you buy 200K worth of products.
No, so it's all done on just on time or just in time. So what you do is basically have an agreement they would drop ship that for you, but you have to buy a certain amount of stock from
to
them
get that break.
to then hit this price break. And
I
so
see.
that was the incentive. And the question, I suppose, is always, how do you hit that price break? Because in that Pareto, and if automotive is the thing to go by, is that most of your business is going to come through some key lines. But when you're doing just in time and the manufacturer is operating as a distributor for you as well, it's more straightforward. But this particular instance is a very, very interesting and unique instance because of all of the challenges about the forward ordering of stock. It's highly complicated. I was listening to a guy actually was talking about slightly different, but talking about data centers. They're talking about putting semiconductors into data centers, and they're saying, "Oh, we'll just build another data center." Different to econ, right? The lead time on a data center apparently is now 9 years. If you're going to buy a data center, it's going to take you a while. You've got to hang out and wait for that. When part of the problem is, I hate to say it, but the industries that we choose to operate in, we take legacy operators, and these people have grown up and they're going to be wholesalers of home goods and, and outdoor furniture and barbecues. But some industries are so archaic and they're not helping themselves. And as a retailer, you are burnt so badly by actually having to work in these spaces. It's tough, really, really tough. So I do wonder whether what needs to happen here is you need to have a tantrum. You need to have a tantrum.
Today's solution is
You basically go in there and you have to cause some friction, and it starts with the e-commerce manager, then engaging the CEO, engaging the CFO. And I know we've had situations before, we've had round tables, haven't we, where we've actually had the manufacturer, the CEO, marketing manager, and we're sitting there and we're saying, what to work this out? Because we're trying to talk about PPC, and obviously what we are super competent at is delivering the PPC piece. But if we want to do double-digit growth year on year, then we've got to solve all of these problems out, and they are solvable. But it's just the question of, from an agency's perspective, is how responsible should an agency be in solving all those end-to-end challenges?
Yeah, you've got to certainly be
we should try at least.
Yeah, no, agreed. You've certainly got to be party to it. I mean, it's to get back down to the margin piece, and like you said, it's if you can say, look, we're not hitting our ROAS targets or we're not achieving what we want to do because the margin's not there, then it might be on them to go back to the supplier and say, look, you need to help us out. We need to do something with you because you want to sell your stuff. We want to sell it. It's a wider conversation, like you say. I totally agree with that, Nate.
I mean, sometimes you can say that, they'll say on our side, they'll say, I'm not making any margin. But on the other hand is, but you didn't buy it at the right price. If you'd have actually bought the thing at the right price,
it's valid.
Along with all of the other deal making that was going on at the same time, because you had to hit your numbers, Mr. Fireplace or Mr. Barbecue. Basically, what we've done is an 8 months forward order, which is 10% worse off. And so we're out the gate, we're struggling.
Yeah.
That's always going to be a super difficult. But that's what, and this is more of a message to the actual retailer themselves or the wholesalers is, we would often have very, very tight, detailed conversations with the manufacturers to the buying part of it is crucial.
Yeah.
But there's also deals to be done. There's deals to be done. And I think we've done that with barbecues before, haven't we? There's saying, okay, well, there's 15 pieces that we can get here. We can do you a deal on this. Exclusives as well. I mean, with alloy wheels, we used to do a lot around that. You'd say, okay, we've got 3 or 4 exclusive barbecues, for example, which we're the only people in the UK that can sell that particular product.
I mean, we'll have all had instances where, like, the shit rolls down the proverbial hill, doesn't it? So supplier to business to then PPC, it's generally like I always joke it's the PPC punch bag. So it's like our ROAS isn't good enough. Why? Well, it's not always the advertising, it's not always the competition. It could be the price, it could be the way it's been shipped. There's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as long as you're not paying stupid amounts on your costs and things like that, the ROAS is often a result of all of the other factors combined.
Agreed.
Because at the end of the day, paid search is just there to really put the product or the message in front of the right person at the right time. And even in this particular circumstance, I mean, completely outside of PPC, but they're on a legacy platform at the moment, which is coming to end of life. It's not being worked on or developed. And we're moving them on to Shopify. And right out of day one, we're going to have abandonment emails. We're going to have express checkouts. Because someone choosing to buy or not through a business might be as simple as they can't be asked to go find the card and put the card details in, but PayPal Express is available, or Google Pay or Apple Pay is available. It might just be that. And when we've migrated other websites off of other platforms and onto Shopify, we've generally seen a pretty much immediate improvement in conversion rate just because it's an easier website to use. So there's these other kind of factors at play with the barbecues, or probably more so the fires and stoves. We know that it's more of a considered purchase in terms of you're going to buy a fire and stove, but you're probably going to change your skirting boards, change your wallpaper, whatever. It might be a week-long process. So set up a Klaviyo flow to go and tap the person on the shoulder after 7 days to say, you're still interested, you viewed this, come buy it from us. And I don't know, here's some free shit to go with it, basically, to kind of bump them through.
Bundle it up.
Well, that's all the attribution, right? I mean, the attribution. Sorry, Sam, I don't know if you were talking.
Yeah, no, I was just going
to say attribution is, everyone's saying, oh, the sky's falling, it's not worked. And then the attribution shows us that some of the pull through comes later on. These things, right? Was the attribution even set up right? It's a lot of tracking issues. It's like Dave Brailsford, isn't it, with Sky cycling coach? Was it Sky, or it's the UK cycling coach? 1,000 things by 1%. I mean, we certainly live in those marginal gains as a strategy that we would do.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what we do. But also we need to be there very much about the academic thought leadership of what's actually happening here, and are we doing the work in ticking all the boxes, and how soon should you engage a paid media agency in this whole journey? Well, I would say you want to be going all the way 12 months back if that's your buying cycle. And there needs to be a conversation around that in terms of, this is what's available to us. We should be discussing this in the same way that we're discussing this now, to say, this is how we should set this up. This is how it's going to play out. And we should be doing some research and doing a thesis on that. Yeah. Because it will play out. Because you're talking about law, ultimately you're laying it out to try and get some form of analysis in terms of, this is why we expect it to perform. It's not making a bet on a stock, isn't it, or something like that. You're looking at all of the different factors to hopefully get the desired outcome.
1,000 things at the 1% is a great analogy. Like sink or swim, isn't it? It's very competitive. So like, there's other, you've got to be innovative. So like, what about payment methods? Have they just got one style of payment method? Are they offering Klarna finance? Not these guys, but in general. Like, there's so many out the box things you can do in an e-com space now that your competitors might not be, that you could maybe do, that might find more sales, more margin for you. So yeah, I like the incremental idea of being innovative, and small gains adds up to big things for sure. That's across all platforms, to be honest. Yeah.
And I've seen that in play, and it's certainly something that we want to adopt as a good agency. I think you have to have the creativity to go with it. I think the problem sometimes is if you just want to be entrepreneurial and you want to change the strategy every 2 weeks and you jump in around and you don't know what to follow. But if we're making sure that all of the campaigns are absolutely methodically managed, plus creativity backed up by some thought leadership, then you should be, and it's that whole thing, test and measure. So we're really traders, really, in that respect, aren't we? We're trading, and we're looking at the signs of when to buy, when to sell, and some of the mitigating factors. If we know that somebody else has got a sale on, and that they've got a price which has been dropped and we can't compete with that, is it worth us to actually stop promoting that and bidding on that, holding our position, like Si said earlier, and actually then when they're out of stock is then go really, really hard.
Yeah, push the price up. You're the only one in the market that has it.
But it's the time it takes for that intelligence to be formed, isn't it?
Definitely.
Analysis around it.
I think it's the time that it takes, and obviously the business needs to bring the cash in to keep the lights on. So it can often or sometimes be quite painful. And having to kind of grit your teeth in and hold that stock back that you could sell just to kind of keep the cash coming in, basically. But I don't know, it's finding a balance like everything.
Definitely.
There's certainly price monitoring systems out there which can provide some data, like BoardFi, which is one
And
that we
guidance.
advocate for, which is good. Equally, you could take your top 2 competitors and you could do some basic manual price checks, which is, again, what we used to do. But I'd really be interested to hear, because obviously this is quite a kind of rounded conversation. It's great, like, oh yeah, if it was 12 months ago, we would have done this, but that really doesn't help the guys
Hindsight's
out, right,
great.
who are retailers who are feeling the pinch at the moment. So I'm really interested to know, like, what could we do today? What are the things that are available to us? And a lot of the things that are available to us are things that could be leveraged in some way, maybe something that we're doing. Just one other quick story as well. I'll say on this one. When we did the automotive, we had one big store, and it wasn't the most successful part of the business. We actually did 80 micro stores, and those micro stores were on their own domain for specifically that single brand. And what we recognized is that particular consumer looking for that particular brand, buying directly from what they perceived was that particular company. And this is a bit grey hat, well, not 90s, but, early 2000s. But this is, it worked, and they were incredibly powerful stores. So in the psyche of the buyer, how do we come across as nothing changes, but just the perception is that we are absolutely the number one place to buy from? I don't know, what is it that we could do right now that could change this in any possible way?
Well, fantastic question. I mean, also thinking about wrapping up, which kind of leads to the answer, which is if you're at a stage where you're able to do planning, if you have the data to be able to make better decisions for the future, because we all know that predicting things, I think, is extremely difficult at best. But if you don't have, or you're further into the journey, or you're already halfway through, then I think looking at, like, for example, how you approach paid media, have you implemented the right strategies? Because that's easier to shift rather than, going back to the table to sit with a supplier, an e-commerce manager, and the agency to then think about, okay, how are we going to completely shift our product set? But also similarly, like as Simon said, with are you on the right site? Is there a good experience? Just shifting over from, say, Magento to Shopify because it's easier to use, the checkout's a bit more streamlined. You don't have to pay insane dev costs. Making a shift as simple as that could really help your ability to perform. And Nick, as you rightly said, although, okay, albeit at that time that was gray hat, there's still now white hat ways of being able to segment one site into, say, 10 that are specific and niche down, which makes it easier for people to make purchasing decisions. That's all the stuff that we could do from our end. But again, I think true success, as we've all kind of talked about in this conversation, comes from really understanding all of it from A to Z, thinking about the plans, making estimates, and then wondering how is the best way to approach this to maximize our results, and taking almost a short-term thinking approach to what are we going to do to maximize our revenue this month after all that planning is done and after you've covered all the basics that either yourself as an in-house team or an agency can do for you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with War's point. And it's great when you're working as a team because for me, it's acknowledging the fact that we can't know everything about everything. And there's multiple ways to skin the cat, right? And there's lots of different ways that we can optimize. And just one final point from me is I'm working with somebody on a shoe brand at the moment. And it's a shoe, children's school shoe brand. And when we're looking at the competitor analysis is that they're saying that they're durable. And we're saying, well, we're durable and we can prove that too. And we can say we've got a great fit. And they're saying, okay, well, we've got great fit too. And these are the key things that the market wants as well, right? But when it comes down to something such as sustainability or an environmentally friendly product that's made from, and they can't do that, it's a tiebreaker. And sometimes in these highly commoditized products and markets, we just need to look for the tiebreaker. If we can find the tiebreaker, then that's enough to actually win the business. It doesn't need to be something seismic to actually get the sale.
Exactly. Well, guys, I think this is a slightly longer episode than we're normally used to. So let's give ourselves, if I ever find it, a round of. Nope, I don't see it. We're just gonna do this if it plays. And on that very, very quick cutoff, thank you everyone for watching Beyond the Bid. Join us next week, and we hope to see you soon. All the best, guys.